Hey guys, so we started this unit by talking about mostly Maya, Aztec, and Inca, how people kind of got to North America, Central and South America to begin with, and also why Europeans are kind of interested in exploring and so on and so forth. So now we're going to talk about some of the first explorers briefly, and we're going to move on and we're going to talk about conquest. And there's kind of two phases to this whole thing for Europeans. The first phase is discovery, and the second phase is really conquering these territories. So we're going to kind of start talking about that second phase where Europeans are really kind of more focused on conquering as opposed to discovering. So here we go. So it should be noted that the first explorers are going to come out of Portugal and Spain. um, those countries, as a function of their geography, are kind of predisposed to being successful explorers. They're located on what's called the Iberian Peninsula, and you guys remember from back in the beginning of the course, a peninsula is a landmass that is surrounded by water on three sides. So Spain and Portugal certainly fit that bill. They definitely count as a peninsula. So they grow up on the water. So Portugal, especially, you're going to get a guy there called Prince Henry the Navigator. And he's going to be the first kind of government official that is really wholeheartedly interested in exploration and discovery. He's going to establish a school dedicated to the art of sailing and cartography. Cartography is a fancy word for map making. And he's going to literally deliberately teach people how to go out and explore. So that's kind of the way it's going to work. Now, just because an explorer is from a certain country doesn't mean he discovers things for that country. The best example of that is Christopher Columbus, who was Italian, but lands in Hispaniola and claims it for Spain. And that is because he is being bankrolled by Spain to go out and discover. So these people that are kind of sponsoring these explorers are known as patrons. Okay. So Prince Henry is going to be a patron for many early Portuguese explorers. So the Portuguese idea, and just to recap from last time, the whole idea here is to try to get to Asia. So the Portuguese are going to try the kind of conventional method of trying to reach Asia by sailing, um, you know, uh, east. So down around the bottom of Africa and then up towards India and so on and so forth. Spain is going to get fancy. And by this time, everyone knows that the world is round and that if you want to get to the far east, China and Asia, what you could do in theory is sail west. And Spain decides they're going to sail west. And that's how we begin. So Spain sails west, Portugal sails east. They discover these places. Okay, terrific. Now, look, obviously, we're skipping a large part of this story. This is usually the part where we talk about Columbus and Magellan and a bunch of these other explorers, Vasco da Gama, and so on and so forth. And we talk about people first circling the globe. And you guys kind of pretty much know the story of Columbus, which, for our purposes helps because we got to cut things out for time. So, being that you guys are kind of sort of familiar with that, that's the part we skip. So, after these places are kind of discovered, now it's time to conquer them. Okay, you got to, like we've been over, there's people that exist in these places, and these people need to be kind of conquered so that Europeans can do what they want with the land and the resources and so on and so forth. So, for starters, you need to talk about what enables natives to be conquered by Europeans. Why is this so easy for Europeans to conquer the natives? And it's really coming down to like three main factors, although there are more. These are the three big ones. Superior tech. Europeans have guns and steel armor and horses and so on and so forth. The funny story about this is when Hernan Cortez, and this, who knows if this is even true, but when Hernan Cortez lands and he mounts his horse on the boat and walks the horse off of the gangplank, and the people that saw him had never seen a horse before, so, or steel for that matter, so they thought that Cortez sitting on the back of his horse was this new animal that was like part horse, part man, and so on and so forth, because they had never seen a horse before. They didn't know any better. So that's how foreign this whole thing was. So new tech is a big deal. Guns, steel armor, horses, etc. Also, what the Europeans are going to do is they're going to kind of forge alliances with neighboring tribes that they are trying to conquer. So, the Aztec is the dominant civilization in Central America. So, when the Europeans show up, they're going to make friends with all the other little tribes around there that the Aztec have been beating up on for a long time. And if you've been beaten up for a long time in a lot of years, and another group comes and says, "Hey, ally with us, and we will defeat them." A lot of people are willing to throw their support around behind them. So alliances are an important part of this. Also, last and certainly most impactful was diseases. The Europeans, without even really knowing it, are going to transmit deadly diseases to natives. So this contact between Europe and the natives is going to facilitate the transmission of disease on an unprecedented level. Um, the reason this is kind of really, really impactful is because when you're exposed to certain germs and bacteria over the course of generations, I mean, not you, but your whole lineage and your whole ancestry is exposed to certain germs and bacteria over the course of time, you will biologically develop some kind of immunity to those germs and bacteria that you have been exposed to consistently for a really, really long time. Well, when Europeans show up, the natives that live in the Americas had never been exposed to these germs and bacteria before, so their bodies were not able to develop an immunity to any of these things. And diseases like measles and smallpox, which are transmitted to them, will devastate populations at an unprecedented level. It will kill millions and millions of natives. So the first important thing to know is that most natives of the Americas die not as a result of warfare with Europeans, but because of their exposure to European diseases. So that's the first thing we need to know. Excuse me. So the first people that are actually going to go off and conquer, we said there's discovery and then there's conquering. These are now the conquerors, and they're called conquistadors. Spanish and Portuguese conquerors of the New World. Okay, so going back to the first thing, we mentioned that there are three important civilizations: Maya, Aztec, and Inca. Well, the Maya are going to kind of rise and then fall and kind of be replaced by the Aztecs. So there's really only two dominant religions that we're going to two dominant cultures that we're going to focus on, and those are the Aztec and the Inca. So this guy named Hernan Cortez is going to conquer the Aztec in Mexico and Belize. And you will see, how he's able to do that and the story of how he does that. And a guy named Francisco Pizarro is going to conquer the Inca in South America, so Chile, Peru, and Argentina, and you will kind of see a little bit about that. So there's a document and there's a couple of video clips for you guys to check out. So check out the resources in order to complete the worksheet, and as usual, I'm around if you guys need any help. All right, later.